Ladies and gentlemen, I have not been more hyped for a patch of Paragon in my Paragon career. Welcome to the Legions of Agora patch. Amazon is the tried and true way of shopping for anything you need or want at the lowest prices. Support the channel at no cost to you by doing your Amazon shopping through the link in the video description. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, and here it is. Look at this Minion art. Unfreaking believable. Ladies and gentlemen, this is part one of two-part patch note series because it's just so dang big. This is going to be a quick overview into the gameplay, which really big changes add hero balance. The second part will be about the draft lobby, about cards and gems and stuff like that. So there's two parts. This first part is a general overview and some pretty huge changes. Legions of Agora, new army has arrived to usher in a surge of power, and boy does it look good. Basically, as you kill minions, you will expose their weak core, hence the execute mechanic, just to give you a visual for that and increase that amazing immersion that Paragon can fulfill. Look at this Iggy and Scorched skin. It is unbelievable. Look at that. Art team, absolutely outdid yourselves. This is absolutely unbelievable. So there is the Phoenix Iggy and Scorch, one of the best skins in my opinion in the game. It's unbelievable. One of the biggest changes, ladies and gentlemen, is how the lanes work. We're going back to a 2v2 and a 1v1 lane system that was in Legacy. And the solo lane, the lane nearer to Prime Guardian, is now called the solo lane. This is where offlaners, or now the solo laners, will be going to head 1v1. In the duo lane, which is nearest Raptors, it will be where the carries and supports on both teams fight each other. This does give one team an advantage for getting that gold buff, but it does give the other team the advantage of getting Fangtooth. So you can see that there is the playoff. We'll have to see how this changes things. If maybe there's going to be, you know, maybe the map's going to change again to be not asymmetrical. I mean, who the heck knows? With these big changes, I didn't know about this. Absolute news. Huge gameplay changes that we're just gonna have to see how it is. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a strong emphasis on increasing the impactfulness of their abilities with hero balances. Also, the gold economy is shifting to encourage laning and fighting with your team. Passive drip has been lowered, but minions now grant a portion of the gold to nearby heroes when they die to other minions or structures. So no matter if you last hit it, you still get a portion of their gold. And we'll talk about that math in a bit. They've also changed the draft lobby, which will be in the second video. Really good changes there, and it looks phenomenal. It's more emphasizing your role instead of the heroes. So there are elements here that change that. Full release notes, guys. Absolutely insane. Of course, the pre-Winterfest Epic Mega Sale will be returning, so 30% off all of those skins at the end of November. Guys, minions, again, art will change dramatically as you attack them to expose their weak core for that execution. Again, Fangtooth lane is now going to be the duo, where it's the 2v2 lane. The Prime Guardian lane is now the 1v1 solo, and the mid and jungle roles have remained unchanged. This is going to be huge. Towers will not go down as fast anymore, unless of course one lane really beats the other. Hopefully this keeps that at bay, and the early tier 1 towers will remain standing up, making the game maybe feel a little bit more prolonged, and that there is a legitimate laning phase because one isn't at such a disadvantage. There has been a free look camera as well that's been added, so that when you press left alt or whatever it is on the PS4, you can actually rotate the camera around yourself and just get some good glamour some good glamour shots for you. New regen buff. The aqua buff has been added to the solo lane, which is the or prime lane for those 1v1 solo heroes. It initially spawns at 3 minutes and then every 2 minutes after that, and grants 15 health regen for 15 seconds. So that is a ton of health, a little over 200. So that can definitely provide good sustain. It will be in favor of somebody else, but again, that's maybe something you want to you want to take into consideration when you're picking a hero, because you know what lane you are. Maybe you want to be more aggressive, so you can push a lane up and keep that for yourself. Who knows? There's going to be a lot of things to consider now. Economy, again, reduce the passive gold drip by 30%, a third, a whole third, but the sharing of gold has been increased. So there is more gold being ingested into the system through the gold share when teammates get last hits, and more importantly, when enemy minions when minions die, period, you still get gold. So minions now grant a portion of their gold bounty no matter if somebody last hits them or not. If one hero is nearby, it's 60%, 2 heroes 60, 3 heroes 40, 30, and 24%. So for example, one hitter usually get 100 gold and no last hit. If you weren't to last hit it, you'd still get 60. If 2 heroes were nearby, then the killer, the last hitter, gets 100, the assister gets 50, total is 150. If nobody was to last hit it, each hero would get 60 and the total would be 120. So you can see that there is about a 30% delta between not last hitting and last hitting. You get 30%, you get about a third more gold from last hitting, and you almost double, you get 2/3 more gold for the last hitters. So last hitting is really, you're talking about 40 gold. That's basically it. If you last hit the minion, you basically net 40 gold if you were otherwise to have just stood there and not last hit it. And what you're also doing by last hitting is your assister is getting 10 less gold than they otherwise would normally. So in a way, if there's no benefit to feeding one individual hero, it's almost better, even though, I mean, you still net more gold if you last hit. It's almost, in a way, better to not last hit, but you still get more gold, which is something I'm still not going to recommend. I guess my point is, it's not terrible if people don't last hit, in a way. Again, in 3 heroes, 4 heroes, those numbers just change. It just means that the killer really starts to get more and more of the portion that they would have otherwise. So there you go. They've increased the death streak gold bounty reduction so that if you are on a death streak, you are worth more, and you are worth less and less gold, so that people can't snowball even more. They've adjusted the hero XP bounties. I mean, the numbers are whatever. It just means that in the early game, enemies don't get as much hero experience from killing you, but in the late game, they do get more hero experience. It's kind of a balancing act. In the early game, you're supposed to be in lane, and that's supposed to be the emphasis and the source of experience. But in the late game, if you manage to get a kill on an enemy hero, and there is a differential, I suppose, then you can increase that further, because that's what the late game is about, team fighting. Now, the combat and movement speed slow penalties have been changed dramatically, and that you will see why when we get to the balance, because you have to take into account the whole picture, and the whole picture will become clear later on. They've reduced the strafe penalty, moving side to side, by half. So I think that will make dueling, especially ranged, that'll make dueling much more dynamic, and you'll be able to dodge and stuff like that. It'll make that quite interesting. Reduced the back pedal penalty from 20 to 15%, barely changed that up, but again, you'll get a clear picture later on when we talk about some other things. Reduce the ranged combat penalty from 40 to 25%. I kind of like that, because especially on really slow ranged heroes. Like, you would crawl after using a basic attack, and it was really quite crazy. I actually really do like that. They've reduced the melee miss combat slow penalty when you missed a melee attack to 5% from 10, and they've reduced the melee hit combat slow penalty from 30% to 20%. I'll just let you know now, they've increased slow durations and slow amounts a lot, so that you'll be penalized less for doing things in general, but there's a lot more slows out there and they do more. So it'll basically, I think it'll still feel about the same here. It'll just be more intentional and focused on actually doing something. Increase the duration of ranged combat penalties from 80% of attack cycle to 100% attack cycle. So basically, you will remain slowed from these melee and ranged combat penalties for the whole duration of your basic attack. But there's a minimum duration of 0.7 seconds and a maximum duration of 1. Nobody has a increased basic attack. Nobody has a basic attack cooldown more than 1 second unless you use death crawler, so that doesn't really affect that, but the minimum is the really important one. They've increased the duration of the melee hit combat again to 100% maximum with those minimums and maximums. This will be more of a difference because it's 65 to 100%. Just so that melee heroes, again, if you want to get away from melee heroes, they can't just follow you and attack you a bunch, but you're gonna have to use a slow, and that will be really effective. Fangtooth, Prime Guardian. I don't know why these changes were made. Probably because, to be honest with you, the laning phase is a little bit longer. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit longer, so when you actually get to these objectives, they will be about the same as they were now, and you'll actually be able to get them instead of them before sitting there getting a crazy amount of health and just kind of not being able to kill them. We'll see. I think that's my thinking, but we'll see. Adjust to health from 4,000 to 2,900, increasing the amount of health that they gain per time that they spawn. Adjusted the basic defense from 65 to 40, and increased the initial spawn time from 2 to 5 minutes. We'll have to see. Maybe Fang and Prime are going to be too easy to take. I don't know. Prime Guardian adjusted the health, reduced that, reduced the basic defense, increased the ability defense. Abilities maybe were dealing too much damage. Reduced the homing projectile base damage just a wee little bit. Maybe it was doing a little bit too much. Increased the knockback damage, the slow damage, and increased the gold bounty. So it deals more damage overall, I do believe, like in an AoE, but has less. So I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays. The gameplay is going to be completely different. 2v2 lane, 1v1 with different times and a whole bunch of the game. This is a completely different game. Ladies and gentlemen, Paragon is a completely different game. Structures, this one I was so excited to hear because it's huge. Reduce the early game bonus defense duration from 7 minutes to 5 minutes. Again, because probably, again, remember it's a 1v1 versus a 2v2 lane. So they'll be more defended, relatively speaking. Reduced early game bonus defense from 150 to 120. Again, because there's better people, better roles, better situations defending those towers. Increased tower defense penetration from 50% to 75%. That's going to deal a ton more damage. Plus, increase the tier 1 tower damage from 182 to 200. They're going to hit harder, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly what we've all been waiting for and wanting for forever. Increased tier 2 tower health, 2,500 to 28. They were paper. And I love this change. Increased inhibitor basic defense from 65 to 80. And they were paper. So I absolutely love this change. Thank you, Epic. Thank you for seeing the light. Thank you so much. Updated economy rewards for structures. Increase the structure kill bounty that most people forget about. There is the last hit mechanic 2 towers, 204 to 300. Reduce the tier 1 gold bounty global payout. They've just reduced that global, probably to make up for a lot of the other gameplay things that are happening, and reduce the inhibitor gold bounty as well. The jungle has been changed tremendously as well. Increased basically the large minion health quite a bit. The green and black buff as well, just a wee little bit. Reduce the initial spawn time of green and black buff camps, so that basically you can go from one minion camp to the green and then move on from there. Whether that changes things, I'm gonna have to redo my jungle routes guide and all my tutorials as well that I just did. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see exactly how that changes. Let me know maybe down in the comments what you think that will change. They've increased the economy in the jungle tremendously. Almost 30% across the board. Not necessarily experience, but gold bounty has increased quite a bit. A quarter, almost a third here. So the jungle is worth much, much more. And I think that is due to the laning phase maybe a little bit longer. Maybe a little bit longer. And it's going to, you know, the jungler will be in the jungle more, getting more, so he'll be able to stay relevant with the new minion mechanics in lane. That is probably why this is there. Increased effectiveness on Hunter's sight buff. It's going to do a lot more because the melee slow magnitude 15 to 20, but the range slow magnitude from 5 to 15. So that is huge. Once you get that buff, it's going to be very, very powerful. Increase the amount of time before minions are added to the waves. Minions will now be added on the 30th, 40th, 44th, and 60th instead of the 22nd, 38th, and 58th. So the 22nd, the 30th instead of the 22nd is huge. That will allow the early game and the laning phase to you know, not have so many minions so that you can get an edge and get down a tower even more. And then in mid-game doesn't change too much, and then the end game basically doesn't change at all. So they're extending the laning phase as what I'm kind of getting from them, and the mid-game, again, not changed too much. Reduced minion movement speed. Yes! Because they moved really fast. They pushed really, really fast. And I really like that. And you will see movement speed is the theme here in this patch. Reduce super minion health. Yeah, maybe they're a little bit too healthy. Took a really long time to kill. And they reduced the siege minion damage versus heroes from 75% to 20% health because boy did they chunk. Boy did they chunk. And again, there's going to be more battling around minions and because of the laning phase and stuff like that. So that probably helps with that as well. Adjusted melee minion ability defense and ranged ability defense. They've lowered that so you can actually clear. Minion camps. Yeah, that'll be nice. And they've updated the economy rewards for lane minions as well. So they've increased the melee, ranged, siege, super, and XP as well. Because again, that economy is more than want to emphasize laning and then those objectives and that instead of maybe the death balling that has definitely been happening. Knockups, they've been changing this, and this makes me so happy. All knockups have had their height reduced and made consistent across the board. Finally, it's not good gameplay interaction between when you are knocked up and then you get bounced around all the time. What happened on Rampage, it was terrible, and this is really good. Now, to compensate for that, the knockups are always accompanied by a stun that persists beyond the knockup duration. So if it's a knockup for 2.5 seconds, then you just knock up a little bit and then you're stunned for the remainder of the duration, just to make it work, right? Makes sense. Respawn times, increase the base respawn time from 7 seconds to 10 seconds, just adding 3 seconds onto that. In the early game, maybe, I mean, you die and then you're like, what happened? And then you'd already be respawned and you'd be like, oh, okay. Maybe that makes sense. The bots now respect players' lobby pick possession preference. You can actually test certain heroes and certain roles without the bots being dumb about it. Fantastic. Absolutely, absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it. Great for testing and especially jungle roles. And you want to try different, maybe non-jungle specific heroes. I really do like it. Hero unlocks, adjust the levels in which heroes unlock. Basically, I don't know how this has changed from now, but hopefully it's less so that people can get stuff earlier. There's some bugs here. There's really not that bad. There's a spell shields block that was really big, and other than that, there was really not much more to say. There is the gameplay changes and monolith changes and kind of overview of the Legions of Agora patch. This is part 1. Part 2 will be about the heroes, and part 3, because the huge patch notes are about cards, gems, and the UI. So please stick around, guys. Huge patch notes. Hopefully you guys enjoy. And again, Please like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, share it with the community, and subscribe. Check out all of my social media. Until next time, like always, stay optimistic and positive.